Curiosity is one of those things where really a lot of research is going on, and a lot of experience and experiments have been put into this. So I am academic director of Curious Kids International Preschool, and my name is Swapna Koganti. Welcome to the session, and I'm all about curiosity. That really drives me, and that drives the academic curriculum that we have set up in Curious Kids as well. It also helps us in setting up programs for after school activities, like we have Bridging the Gaps program, which is really, really essential for kids from upper kindergarten till grade 5. And these are the ones who have gaps in various subjects, and they struggle in future classes, because if their gaps or learning gaps are not filled, then children really struggle as they go to higher grades. Their confidence goes down, and then interest in learning goes down. So we want to contain all that. We want to stop all that. So that's why we've learned a lot about curiosity-based learning, and now is the time that we tell you all about it. So, okay, we have so many of you joining in today. That's really nice. So we all know about first 5 years of children, right? We all talk about that there is going to be a huge impact, of how we talk to them, how we behave with them. It takes a village to raise a child. We all know about it. We have heard it enough number of times. We have heard that 90% of the child's, mental development happens during the first 5 years. But what do we do about it? Do we just go on teaching the rote methods that we have been practicing for years, or do we innovate the way we teach? How do we teach innovation? How do we teach adaptation? These are things that are really required for the next generation, because we are not setting up brick and mortar industries anymore, right? All our work is mostly online. All our work is mostly about admitting people into a three-dimensional era. Like, we are sitting worlds apart now. We are still connected through our session today. So these are the kind of innovative technologies that we need. And how do we instill that kind of curiosity, innovation in our children? So that's what we're going to talk about today. Okay, back to my screen. So I'm going to just slightly touch upon the requirement of early childhood development. So age to 5 years, really, really essential. Their brain develops. It has a lasting impact on child's ability to learn, and also lasting ability in the sense it will go on for a lifetime. Whatever they're learning, whatever they're absorbing during the first 5 years, its impact will be there throughout their life. And this has been proven, and this is no new story. I'm telling us things that everybody know, I believe. I'm just emphasizing it because what experience we give to those children during the first 5 years, you're actually making the child become that. So just be cautious of all that. And so quickly about us, Curious Kids. So we are international preschool, daycare, after school. Like I said, we do a lot of research on how we can help children envision their future, how we can help them instill curiosity, independence, and love for learning. That's all about us. So we want the children to grow up to be believers. We want the children to grow up to be compassionate. We want children to grow up to a beautiful world, which we all dreamt of as children. Maybe there, maybe not, but with a little bit of effort, we will definitely be there if we put our children in the right path. I will also talk one more slide about us, that we have Early Childhood Association Award from Hall of Fame for our credit. And I'm really proud of this achievement, because it's hardly 2 years that we started and we already have an award, that too for the way we teach and the way we instill these learnings and a lot of love and compassion. So this is what we have also for our achievements. We have children who have participated at national, state level championships, won awards and won medals in karate and various championships. Karate particularly, they have children at our school have won state level, national, gold, silver, bronze, name it, and they have bagged all those medals. Really proud of those children, and of course proud of the children who are learning based out of experiences. Since 2017, our journey began, and it took us almost a year just to think of the name and to get started. So 2018 is when we actually started working. And in 2019, within a year frame, we are awarded top 50 in Asia. Really something that we look forward to getting more such awards to our credit. And now we are starting our franchisees. So franchisees, we are open. We are looking for educated women and women who are really highly qualified. And this is not open for everybody. It is only open for educated and highly qualified women who understands what curiosity is, what early childhood is, and who would be willing to walk on our path. This is what parents have to say. I'm very happy that what we have instilled. If you go back a couple of slides, we spoke about our vision. We spoke about curiosity, independence, love for learning, and the feedback that we received from parents exactly matched up to that. So I'm really, really happy that we are working in the right path. Like social skills, life skills, individual attention. If you see the highlights of the words, they are actually talking what we wanted to do. So we are on the right path, and it gives me immense pleasure. And do you see this? Wonderful to see the one in the middle. Says, wonderful to see children grow and allow them to be curious. So that's where we are. Why curiosity is the game changer. This is what we're going to talk about. Yes, perfect. So that's how the curiosity works. So you were all linked with me while I was doing this game, because you all were thinking through the process. You all were, you had some information with you already. You were filtering that information. You were trying to bridge the gap. I will talk more about it. Stay tuned. Okay, so 3 things today. So I'm going to talk about why Oprah shows serials end on high note always, or the cliffhangers always, and why curiosity as a pedagogy or as a teaching methodology works, and what are the practical applications in which they have tested and thoroughly checked these things. So first and foremost, this is the book called World is Flat. If you have ever read that book, this is a recent one, 2005. It's not a very old book. So in this one, they quote that in regards to educational achievements, curiosity combined with motivation, that's more important than intelligence. So that's what they say in this one. Okay. So William James from 19th century. So we thought curiosity was new thing, innovation, everywhere, every field is talking about this as if it is a new thing. But actually it's pretty old. William James is an early psychologist and philosopher. He's been there since in the 19th century, and he spoke first about scientific curiosity. Curiosity which can be in the scientific path, or which can have derived outcomes when you work through it in a particular way. Of course, we all know Jean Piaget model, popularly known in the all early childhood field or sector. He is eminent child psychologist, but he is more famous for Piaget's model for fine motor, gross motor, the touch and feel exploration that children will have. So their teachers generally show, if you go to the parent-teacher meeting, that they shake different bottles with different pebbles or beans or rocks, and then this bottles makes different sounds. So that's one of the Piaget's model for auditory exploration. And then we have touch. We have these books with different material, soft, hard, rough, different material. That's also Piaget's model in exploration, in understanding curiosity and understanding exploration. So these are 2 main characters that I wanted to talk about. These are biggies in curiosity. When we refer to curiosity, we always say Guru Namaste. And then there is also one Russian psychologist I will talk about. He spoke about roles of adults in encouraging, how do we encourage children to be innovative or to understand things or to be curious. So that role was spoken to us by Russian psychologist Lev Vygotsky. Okay, so together when we put Jean Piaget's model and Lev Vygotsky's model, then we have cognitive abilities of children. That means mental abilities of children that can be expanded. So you try to grow the mental abilities of children by using creativity, and of course exploration, right? By using curiosity and exploration and creativity, then we are achieving things that we otherwise cannot achieve. Okay, children are not born dumb. Let's take that for first step. Okay, they are pretty intelligent. They only need external stimulus from all of us, external experiences from all of us as adults to help them make those links. Okay, so we all have to give them those experiences, give them their opportunities to excel, to explore, to be curious, to understand what is going on around them. Okay, having said that, I'll just move on to Western psychology. There is another psychology of behaviorism. We talk a lot about behaviorism, and that's what most of the education system is based out of. Exams, that's based out of behaviorism. Behaviorism is nothing but some of the psychologists and scientists sat together and they decided that they will test in labs some rats, some pigeons, some monkeys on how they will behave when we provide them with different different setups. Okay, so when we provide them with food, how are they behaving? Like they set up a cage and they put a monkey inside it. They give the monkey food every day at a particular time in one particular direction. So the next day, obviously, it will wait for the food in that particular direction. So they are studying the psychology of that particular monkey and then applying those learnings onto people. Okay, and that's why we call lab rats. They use lots of rats and mice in their experiments. So one such mice or one such mouse was behaving a little different. Okay, and that's what caught attention of this behavioral scientists or psychologists. They were looking at the mouse. They were exploring not just their place. They know where the food is provided. Nothing new is happening. Every day food is being provided at the same time, same place, and they don't have any new chambers to explore. It's the same old system that they have. Still, they were trying to find something. Have you ever seen a mouse? You know, it goes sniffing all around. It goes like smelling all what is available. It tries to find something new in the place exists. You know, so that's a search for novelty, and behavioral scientists could not explain this. It was a little hard for them to put it into one behavioral category. Okay? So they just called it that thirst for exploratory behavior, they called it, and they called it thirst for something new, novelty. Okay, so based on this behavioral psychological interest, they have come up with some tests, rewards and punishments, which mostly we use in our education system, right? We perform tests to see where the child stands. We also have punishments. Of course, I should talk in a hushed tone. We do have silent punishments, as I call it, giving corners to children. We have to set a behavior, right? We have to socialize them. We have to help them understand how to behave in a social environment. So we are, of course, using carrots where needed. That is to drag the donkey in a particular direction. We show a carrot. Chalo, chalo, aage chalo. So similarly for children, we are giving stickers. You see children coming home with stickers and external motivation factors for children. Basically, that is required. I won't say I'm against behavioral, punishments, or not harsh punishments. Of course, we are against harsh punishments too. But subtle forms of telling children where to draw a line and when to be rewarded, those kind of things, having a particular schedule for your day, these are good. They encourage children to adapt to good behavior and adapt to a system easily. So we all have to live together in a social setup, right? So they all help. So those are behavior studies help. But now getting back to curiosity, why that mouse was looking around for novelty? Why was it looking for something new in a given setup? It already knew there was no path out. It already knew where the food was provided. It already knew that these are the only possible chambers for me to go. Still, every day it was finding something new. It was trying to find something new. It was sniffing the place. It was exploring what is around. So it was trying something. So that's where the curiosity learnings pitch in. So now the deep dive into curiosity, the exploratory behavior or the novelty seeking. Oh gosh. Oh, all right. I hope we didn't lose the connection yet. Okay, good. So the novelty seeking thirst. I know we all must be experiencing it right now. What is it? What is she going to talk about? So that's the curiosity that is keeping you all still engaged after 20 minutes of the session. So there are two things. These are the ways in which psychologists have divided curiosity. Okay? One is a state feature, which varies on the situation, or is it a trait? Is it inbuilt, or does it stay with us across all situations? Like walking is a trait; it stays with us, right? That's a trait that we built over days, or over years, over generations. So is curiosity like that? Is it a trait that stays with us, or is it a state feature? Does it only come out when you're in a particular situation? Like fear comes out only we are in a particular situation. It doesn't stay with us for a continuous time. So that's a debate. That's another segregation. And another one, this is more important one, perpetual novelty attracts attention. That's what we spoke about, right? The mouse was looking for something new. And epistemic, or the pure knowledge thirst. This one would be pure gold. If we can get that pure knowledge thirst among children, nothing like it. So these are some ways in which the curiosity was divided. But my favorite is the 1994 Lowenstein psychologist has defined it as information gaps. Okay, so pure knowledge thirst will come when we have information gaps. Okay, and when we are trying to fill that information gap. We know something and we are trying to fill the gap that is there in our knowledge, just a little bit. Okay, maybe I know addition, maybe I know multiplication table, but I don't know how addition is applied to multiplication table. I don't know that it is repeated addition. That's what multiplication is, right? So that slight information gap, if you have, you'll be more interested, you'll be more connected. The closer you are to answer, more curious you are. So that's the answer. Why Oprah, Oprah's always top on the high notes, or why we have so much interest on Sudokus, puzzles, crosswords. Sudoku is pretty easy. They're just numbers, but arranging them in a particular format, that's what makes it tricky, right? So puzzles are also the same. Crosswords are also the same. They give us a knowledge that we already have. They give a pinch to that and say, can you do this? Just a little higher to that. So I will also talk about happiness here. I've done a course from ISB. Raj Raghunathan, amazing course he has given. It is out on Udemy, I think, right now. But it's an amazing course. It talks about happiness. Okay, in particular, happiness in learning. What happens is there is something called flow. Okay, and when you are in the flow, you really enjoy learning. And when does the flow come? Flow comes when your knowledge and your challenge are right set on each other. That means you have knowledge of something and your challenge is just enough for you to learn a little bit more. That's when children are more engaged. They enjoy their learning. If you have very dumb questions, like what is 2 + 2, if I give you all, you will say this is not anything interesting, and nobody will be interested in such a session, which is very, very simple. So if a child knows ABCDs already and I'm teaching ABCD, they know it because they already watch TV, they already watch cartoons. So if I'm still teaching ABCD in the same tone, they would be exhausted, they would be bored, they would not be in the happy path, or they would not be in the information gap. Okay, so when you see happiness and curiosity are also playing a very nice role, hide and seek role with each other. And if I give too challenging, if I say a + b whole square to a kindergartner, they would just walk out of the class on my face. They wouldn't even listen to what I'm saying because it makes no sense. There is no information base on top of it. The challenge would lie, right? So there is no perfect synchrony between them. So there is nothing that the child can learn because it is absolutely bizarre what I'm talking about, right? So hope you understood the sync between the two. So that's where the flow happens, flow of learning or joy of learning happens. And that's exactly what Lowenstein is talking about in the information gaps. Okay, so when you have exactly the gap, not too much that I get scared and I run away, and not too less that it is not at all challenging for me, it's boring to me, in other words. So your information gap should be just right for the class, then you would be engaged in that class. So teacher has to be smart enough, or teacher or parent has to be smart enough to tune, based on the child. Okay, child already knows counting till 5. How can I make it interesting for the child? So let us add a puzzle for it. Let us add a brain teaser for it. Let us add a challenge for it. Today we would do counting on the fingers. Tomorrow let's identify the numbers, or tomorrow let's identify the digits. Maybe we will start counting the objects next. If I just teach 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, say with me, A, B, C, D. So it is very boring, very monotonous. You'll have to identify the information gap of the child and bingo, hit on it. So these are some areas where curiosity was used to fill the gap, and it worked absolutely amazing. So these are some practical applications I'll share with those who are interested. Those who are interested, I'll share the links from which I did all the research. So one, this was fill the gaps task, which was given to students, numerous students, to help them learn second language. Okay. Now, learning second language is pretty boring when you are already in graduation. Okay, children up to 5 years can learn up to 6 languages. That's very easy peasy for them. They can learn and adapt up to 6 languages. But once your brain, 21 years, then you will be an adult. Then the brain is very, very difficult to tune and to adjust and to learn a second language. Okay, for the children who are, actually not children, for the graduates who are trying the second language. So what the trick was to pair them in twos. Okay, there will be students in twos, and they will be verbally trying to describe an image the other cannot see in the second language they are trying to learn. Now that makes it interesting game. And the institute which implemented this was pretty famous in a short time. They were not teaching the regular classroom method. What do we call is anar, we call pomegranate, they're not teaching that way. So they're teaching in a way which is very interesting and age appropriate. Okay, so that's where they're using fill the gaps task. And inquiry based learning, we have heard a lot about inquiry based learning. Oh God, in the educational sector, it's like the thing. But what does it mean? They give, I've seen a 4th grader who gets theses to write about anatomy. And do you think the child would be interested? No. Trigger it with curiosity. Trigger it. What happens if you hold your breath? Ask the child to hold the breath for 2 minutes. Can they hold it? Then they will be curious. Why am I not able to do that? Then let them go and investigate. So that link is broken. So if you can link it with curiosity, I think inquiry-based learning can take us to amazing places, in educational sector. Now, the last thing I'll touch upon is brain teasers. In the medical evaluation for doctors and nurses, this was used because when we evaluate doctors and nurses, we want them to be lifelong learners. Okay, I don't want a doctor to forget how to treat or what the symptoms would be of a particular disease. Say like 5 years down the lane, if I would be the patient who would be visiting that doctor, I don't want them to forget anything that they learn ever. So what they did is, instead of giving them multiple choice questions to assess their learning, they have provided them with brain teasers. And after 5 years, they researched the outcome as well. And it so worked out that those who use brain teasers, they still remember the question after 5 years. What was the question that was asked during my Viva? They still remember that, and they never forget it throughout their life. So that's the last set of how we can use curiosity in our sector. So with that, I end my presentation and I open it for questions. This is one quote I really, really love, and we use a lot in our Curious Kids. You must have also seen our brochure, that the future belongs to the curious, the ones who are and not afraid to try it, explore it, poke it, question it. So if your child is asking questions, please encourage. Please encourage them to ask as many questions as they can, and please encourage them to come up with their own answers to that. It could be wrong, it's okay, but they're still trying. I always also quote one more thing. Person who's born to say fisherman, a boy who's born to a fisherman, he wouldn't be afraid of water, because his father or mother has given him enough opportunity to go explore. So as mothers, as teachers, as fathers, I would love you all to give enough experiences for your children to not be afraid of, to go and explore. Because if they explore, they'll be curious to learn more. And if they are curious to learn more, they're not afraid of life. You have taught them the life's most essential skill, to not be afraid of. So, with that, I will just unmute you all, and thank you for being patient and curious during my presentation. Let me know if you have any questions. You can also unmute yourself in case it did not unmute you. Do you have any questions for me? Or did you like the session? Do you have any inputs for me?
The session was very resourceful, and I think you came about with a lot of interesting.
Yeah, please go ahead.
No, I was just saying that I think it's very interesting that you've brought about the topic about how to keep children's attention by giving them more puzzles instead of forcing them to learn something in the regular fashion, because they tend to act as if they don't have the understanding capacity to follow if you're trying to teach them something. But a puzzle they're willing to do.
It's very interesting, the same child, if you try to force them and make them sit down and learn something, they would run away. And if they find some puzzle or some game associated with it, they will be hooked for a long time. And also there is one more experiment which recently happened, that the same games, when they're played online, they're not as interested as somebody, like we were talking about a role of an adult plays. If some adult sits with them and plays along the game, same game, and we can be naive as them or we can be dumb as them, and you can just, talk to them about the game, they'll be even more interested. So if you're teaching something via game-based application, make sure you're sitting next to them. So that's one.
Okay.
Alright, so with that, this was just an introduction session by me. There are wonderful sessions following this presentation. To conduct these sessions, because my personal belief is that parents are the first teachers. No matter how much teachers teach in the school or in the college, parents are their primary teachers. So that's why they have to play a very big role. I've seen I teach children across the world. Okay, I have sessions 4 a.m. in the morning, 6 a.m. in the morning till 10 a.m. in the evening. A lot of children connect to me all over the world for bridging the gaps. Like I was talking in the initial part of the program, right? So they have gaps and they're struggling in the next grade or near future. That's not too far for them. So they're struggling over there. Their confidence is going low. So I help parents sit along with them, and I help parents to improve their confidence in themselves. The children should improve their confidence in themselves. So they should identify what the gap is. And it should also be interesting. If it is not interesting, child will not attend a virtual classroom. It's very, very difficult for them. So that's how we come up with a course to do the sessions that will be more interesting and that would be more apt, because we are now playing the dual roles, parent and teacher. So that role is become big, while our parenting role has slightly come down. So thank you all for taking time to attend the session. And each session ideally would cost around 5,000 to 6,000 if they do physically. But since we will be association of teachers and parents, with a lot more of us will be attending, so it will come at a lower cost for us. That's how we were able to work out at that price. So they will also, for teachers will be doing further courses with us, or for partners, parent partners who will be sending their children to us, or franchisee partners who are willing to partner with us as a franchisee holder, or parents who are willing to instill the right kind of education to children. Please spread a word to them, ask them to join these wonderful sessions.